Earlier today, my colleague Asieh Namdar spoke with Trita Parsi, president of the National Iranian American Council, about the talks in Geneva. And she asked him about the July deadline and the possibility of it being extended.
I think the chances are that they can make it. But even if there is an extension, it doesn't necessarily have to be a 6-month extension. I wouldn't be surprised if they will add a 6-week extension, an extension that runs through August, but doesn't hit the US November elections, doesn't hit the October deadline for Bill Burns when he's retiring, or Catherine Ashton who's retiring in November. And remember, the Rouhani team have been pretty forceful in the negotiations, but his honeymoon in Iran is coming to an end. He cannot afford to let these negotiations drag on for too long, because ultimately people are going to be saying, we've been patient enough when it comes to seeing changes, when it comes to Iran's internal situation, etc., all taking a back seat to the negotiations. That can only last for so long. At some point, you need to be able to address the whole set of issues that Iran is facing.
You know, what is the status of Geneva negotiations right now? French foreign minister said the two sides have actually hit a wall.
It's not a surprise that at some point they would hit a wall. At the end of the day, if this was an easy issue, it would have been resolved 20 years ago. This is a tough issue. And for any negotiation to succeed, it naturally will have a few ups and a few downs before it ultimately reaches success. It would be completely unrealistic to expect that it would be just one fairy tale from the beginning till the end. There's going to be difficulties. The question is, are the difficulties so severe that it actually risks undermining the prospects of getting a deal? And so far, if you balance the difficulties with the great stakes that are there right now, I still remain optimistic.
So what are some of those difficulties?
Well, there's going to be significant difficulties when it comes to the size of the Iranian enrichment program during the period of the implementation of the final deal. There's going to be question marks and difficulties when it comes to issues such as the extent of inspections, to the questions of Iran's past activities that ultimately is going to have to be addressed one way or another in order for there to be a final resolution to this. The Iranians are very upset about the inclusion of ballistic missiles on the agenda, or they rejected the inclusion of that, and that, at least in the past, was a sticking point. It's not clear whether that's been resolved or not. But when you also take a look at what's at stake here, you realize there's a good reason why there's so much political will on both sides to try to get a deal. The degree of seriousness that both the Obama administration is showing and the Iranian government is showing is unprecedented.
And speaking to your point, the fact that U.S. has sent some of its most senior diplomats to Geneva to handle these negotiations, so you're saying that's very significant.
It is significant. I think it's also good news. I don't think it is very likely that they would have sent their top diplomats to the negotiations if they felt that there wasn't a good prospect for success. You send them in when you feel like, okay, we're not going to embarrass our own top diplomats, but sending them on an impossible mission. They're sending it because at this moment, in order to overcome some of these difficulties, which can be overcome, you need a little bit more diplomatic muscle.
Let's talk about sanctions. Are they working?
Well, it depends on what you define working. Are they effective in the sense that they're hurting the Iranian economy? Absolutely. They have severely hurt the Iranian economy. Are they working in the sense that there wouldn't be a deal had it not been for sanctions? In my view, absolutely not. In fact, the position that the Iranian government now is taking on the Rouhani when it comes to transparency, openness to verifications, etc., and the size of the program that they seem to be eager to or willing to accept, it's actually much bigger than it was 10 years ago when the last Iranian offer was on the table in 2005. Over this time, when the US and the Europeans have added sanctions, which in theory adds leverage to their position, the Iranians have aggressively expanded their program. They've gone from 3,000 centrifuges to 19,000 centrifuges, which has also added a lot of leverage to their side. At the end of it, in my view, it seems like it's balancing each other out. Frankly, if it wasn't for the key thing, which is that both sides have agreed to compromise, there would not have been a deal today. And had they both agreed to compromise 10 years ago, then there could have been a deal back then.
Trita Parsi, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.